In my book, The Science Delusion, I pose a series of questions for materialists. In this series of recordings, I'm suggesting what questions you might try out on materialist friends or family members. This session concerns psychic phenomena. Materialists believe the mind is nothing but the brain. Our minds are nothing but what our brains do, and they're all inside our heads, and they're basically physico-chemical processes in nervous tissue. Therefore, it's impossible for you to have an intention, for example, to call someone on the phone, and for them to feel your intention miles away in a way that seems telepathic, because it's all inside your head, and at most the electromagnetic field might reach out a few centimeters, but certainly not over hundreds of miles and specifically affect a particular person. That's impossible. So they usually say telepathy is impossible. It simply doesn't fit into that worldview, and therefore they're led into a kind of denialist position where they have to deny the evidence, either say there is no evidence or that it's all been scientifically discredited. The problem is these things are very common. More than 85% of the population have had experiences of telephone telepathy, thinking of someone who then calls. Many mothers have picked up when their baby needs them in a seemingly telepathic way, sometimes from many miles away. Many dogs seem to know when their owners are coming home. They go and wait by the door or window and seem to pick up their owner's intentions to come home. There's been a lot of research on these subjects, and these are not just imaginations, not just chance events. The evidence against them being chance events from controlled experiments is enormous. So, when it comes to questions for your materialist friends, you won't get far if you just say, let's consider the evidence, because they may deny that any evidence is valid or assume it must all be flawed or fraudulent since they know in advance the phenomenon's impossible. More interesting is to ask them if they've had telepathic experiences themselves, or seemingly telepathic experiences. Most of them probably have. Telephone telepathy is extremely common, and so are other forms of telepathy. They may have had these experiences, but then tried to explain them as just coincidences. Anyway, asking them this question is a very good way of opening up a discussion. Have you had a seemingly telepathic experience yourself? Secondly, another question that might open a fruitful discussion is to ask them what might persuade you to change your mind about the impossibility of psychic phenomena like telepathy and premonitions or precognitions or precognitive dreams. They may say nothing would persuade them, in which case it's clear this is a fundamentalist, dogmatic belief system taken on faith. They may say that evidence would persuade them, in which case you could talk about some of the evidence there is. You can read summaries in my books, The Sense of Being Stared At and Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, or, more briefly, in The Science Delusion. Or they may say that only an overwhelming personal experience would change their minds. In any case, you're likely to have an interesting discussion which could open things up rather than close them down.